The academy floated silently in the blackness of space, a massive structure shaped like a crescent moon, surrounded by sparkling stars and glowing nebulae. Inside, hundreds of young alien students hurried through long, shiny hallways, their excitement almost tangible. Today was different from other days. Today they were going to learn the secret that had baffled the galaxy for centuries, the reason humans were banned from the galactic war. The students entered a giant lecture hall, each finding their assigned seat. The room was enormous, with transparent walls giving a breathtaking view of distant planets and passing starships. The ceiling shimmered like the Milky Way, and holographic screens floated in the air waiting for the lecture to begin. The chatter of students filled the hall. Many whispered about humans, the mysterious species that no alien army had ever been able to predict or control. "Why are humans banned?" a small purple-skinned student asked his friend. "They seem weak." "I mean, look at their technology. They don't even have hyperweapons like ours." His friend shrugged. "Maybe they are just too simple. Or maybe the Galactic Council doesn't trust them. That's what everyone says." The instructor entered the hall. She was an elder alien with translucent blue skin and 4 glowing eyes. Her presence immediately silenced the chatter. She floated above the ground as if gravity had no effect on her, and her voice filled the room without any effort. "Welcome, students," she began. "Today you will finally understand the true reason humans are forbidden from participating in the galactic war. Most of you have heard rumors, many of them false. By the end of this lecture you will see the truth." She gestured, and the holographic screens flickered to life. A series of images appeared showing planets on fire, fleets of ships destroyed, and soldiers fighting bravely. But there was something different about the humans in the images. They did not fight like the aliens did. They did not rely on sheer strength, advanced technology, or overwhelming numbers. Instead, they were using strange strategies that no alien had ever thought of. "These," the instructor said, pointing to the holograms, "are humans in battle." The room went silent. The students leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, trying to understand what they were seeing. Humans were small compared to many alien species, their ships slower and less armored. Yet somehow, in every situation, they were winning. Not just surviving, they were turning hopeless fights into victories. "How?" one student whispered. "They shouldn't be able to do this. Their weapons are weak and their fleets are small." The instructor smiled faintly. "That is exactly the point. Humans do not fight like any other species. They do not follow conventional strategies. They do not act predictably. And that unpredictability is why they are banned from war." She pressed a button on her wrist device and the screens changed. Now the students could see detailed recordings of human battles. In one, a human fleet was surrounded on all sides by a massive alien armada. Their ships were damaged, their numbers tiny. But instead of panicking, the humans split their forces in an unexpected pattern. They created illusions, feigned retreats, and attacked weak points that no one thought to protect. By the time the aliens realized what had happened, the human fleet had escaped and the enemy fleet was in chaos. The students gasped. "This is impossible," one muttered. They turned a losing battle into a victory." The instructor nodded. "Humans are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. They are not the most advanced. But they are clever, adaptable, and courageous. They think in ways that no alien could anticipate. Even when everything seems lost, humans find a way." A small green student raised a hand. "But if they are so clever, why don't we see more humans in the galaxy? Why are they banned?" The instructor's eyes glowed brighter. "Because humans are dangerous in a different way. They are dangerous not because they want to conquer, but because their methods disrupt the rules the galaxy relies on. Our armies are designed for order and predictability. Humans cannot be controlled, cannot be predicted, and cannot be categorized. If humans were allowed to fight, entire battle strategies would collapse. Alliances would be questioned. The entire galactic war could be changed, not through power but through brilliance, courage, and imagination." A murmur ran through the hall. Some students nodded in understanding, while others looked skeptical. They had always thought strength was about technology and numbers, but here, in front of their eyes, humans were rewriting the rules of war without even using hyperweapons or massive fleets. The instructor continued. "But there is more. Humans are also compassionate. They fight not only for victory but to protect others. Entire colonies have been saved because humans refuse to abandon civilians. They risk their own lives to save those who cannot fight. And in doing so, they inspire hope. No alien species has ever understood this. Humans fight not just to win, but to protect, to survive, and to create a future. Another student, this one with 3 eyes and tentacles, whispered to a neighbor. They sound almost like heroes? Yes, the instructor said, overhearing. Humans are not perfect, but they possess qualities that cannot be measured by our technology. Courage, imagination, empathy. These make them extraordinary. And extraordinary beings are not something you can simply control or command. That is why humans are banned from war. Not because they are weak, but because they are too powerful in a way we cannot contain. The room fell silent as the students absorbed the information. For the first time, many of them began to see humans not as a weak, primitive species, but as something extraordinary, something to respect, even fear in a good way. Then the instructor played the final recording. It was a human commander speaking to their crew before a battle that was considered hopeless. The words were simple, spoken with determination, but they carried a weight that the aliens had never experienced. We may be outnumbered, we may be outgunned, but we have something they don't. We have each other, and we have the courage to do what must be done. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who cannot fight. We will find a way, and that way will be ours. The students watched as the human crew executed a plan that seemed impossible. They used clever tricks, made split-second decisions, and turned what should have been a total defeat into a stunning victory. The aliens in the recordings looked shocked, confused, and defeated, while the humans celebrated quietly, focused but humble. This is human ingenuity, the instructor said, and this is why they are banned. Humans are not a threat in the usual sense. They are a threat to predictability, to order, to the way the galaxy has always done things. They remind us that rules are not absolute and that courage, creativity, and hope can overcome even the greatest odds. The students sat back, their eyes wide. They had thought today would be a normal lecture. Instead, they had witnessed something incredible. They realized that humans were unlike any species they had ever studied. They were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced, but they were the most unpredictable and the most inspiring. As the lecture ended, the instructor's voice softened. Remember this, students. Humans are not meant to fight our wars. They are meant to teach us lessons. Lessons about courage, about hope, about the power of imagination. One day perhaps you will understand the full measure of what it means to be human. Until then, respect them, study them, and never underestimate them. The students left the lecture hall in silence, each carrying a new understanding. Some whispered to each other, excited and amazed. Others walked slowly, deep in thought. The galaxy was filled with rules and order, but humans existed outside of it, reminding everyone that greatness could take many forms. One student paused near the exit, looking out at the glowing nebula outside. I never thought humans were like this, he said quietly. They aren't just fighters, they're different, special. His friend nodded. Yes, and now I understand why they are banned. Not because they are weak, but because they are too strong in ways we cannot even control. Above them, the stars continued to shine, and somewhere far away, humans moved through the galaxy unaware of the lessons they had already taught. And in that moment, the alien students realized that their view of the universe and of humans had changed forever. The academy was quiet in the hours after the lecture, with most students resting or studying in their quarters. But a small group of students moved silently through the hallways, their eyes wide with excitement. They were determined to discover more about humans, beyond the stories and recordings the instructor had shown. The lecture had sparked a curiosity they could not ignore. Humans were mysterious, extraordinary, and in ways unpredictable. They had to see the truth for themselves. The leader of the group, a tall, green-skinned student with 4 arms, whispered, "This is it. The archives are supposed to be off-limits, but if we want the real story, we have no choice." His companions nodded. There was a blue-skinned student with glowing eyes, a small orange one with wings, and a purple one with flexible tentacles. Together, they made a perfect team, each with unique abilities that made them ideal for a stealth mission. They reached the massive doors of the Galactic Council archives. The doors were made of a shimmering metal that seemed alive, pulsing softly as if it knew their presence. Security measures were intense, energy barriers, biometric locks, and surveillance drones. But the students had planned carefully. Using skills they had honed in previous lessons, they bypassed the sensors and slipped inside. The inside of the archives was even more incredible than they had imagined. Endless rows of holographic files floated in midair, containing records from every corner of the galaxy, spanning thousands of years. Ships, battles, strategies, and reports were all stored here, accessible only to those with special clearance. The students moved quickly, scanning for anything related to humans. Finally, they found a section labeled Human Conflicts. As they accessed the files, a holographic projection of an alien commander appeared, reporting on a battle from decades ago. The students watched in awe. The commander's fleet had encountered a human fleet on the edge of a war-torn system. According to the report, the human fleet was small, their ships slower and weaker, yet they had defeated an alien armada more than 10 times their size. They did not rely on raw power or advanced weapons. Instead, they used clever tactics, unexpected strategies, and daring maneuvers. The blue-eyed student whispered, How is this possible? They shouldn't have been able to win. They were outnumbered 10-1. The green leader shook his head. Humans are not like us. They don't follow the rules we expect. They adapt. They think. They act when we wouldn't even imagine moving. The next file showed a rescue operation on a distant planet. Civilians were trapped under the control of a hostile alien faction. The humans had no heavy weapons, no army, and little chance of success. Yet they entered the enemy territory, coordinated in small, precise teams, and saved every civilian without losing a single human life. The aliens recording the event expressed confusion and disbelief. The purple-tentacled student muttered, They care about others, not just themselves, that is unusual. The instructor had mentioned compassion during the lecture, but seeing it firsthand had a stronger impact. Humans were not motivated by personal gain or conquest. They acted for the greater good. And somehow their actions always seemed to succeed, no matter how impossible the odds. Another file showed a series of human-led defensive battles. Entire colonies were threatened by alien invasions. Humans, often heavily outnumbered, devised ingenious strategies to protect innocent lives. They used decoys, environmental advantages, and creative tactics that alien forces could not predict. Each record concluded with reports from alien commanders expressing frustration at being outwitted by what they considered a primitive species. The orange-winged student leaned forward, wings fluttering. They are brilliant, not because of their technology, but because of their thinking. They see things differently than we do. The group continued to explore, moving from one holographic report to another. They discovered accounts of humans forming alliances with unlikely species, negotiating peace in impossible situations, and inspiring hope in entire populations. The students realized that humans were not only clever, but also adaptable and resourceful. They had an ability to turn defeat into victory and hopelessness into hope, a combination the aliens had never seen before. Hours passed, and the students found a final report labeled, The Edge of the War, Human Intervention. This account described a critical battle that had changed the course of a conflict in an entire sector. An alien fleet had cornered human forces and their allies. The humans, though vastly outnumbered, executed a plan that seemed reckless at first. They divided their forces into multiple groups, creating diversions and feints. They used the environment of the system, asteroid fields, gravity wells, and energy storms, to their advantage. The students watched in stunned silence as the human fleet succeeded in not only escaping destruction, but also defeating the alien forces in a way that would have been considered impossible by conventional tactics. The alien commander recording the event admitted defeat, unable to comprehend how humans had accomplished the victory. The green leader turned to his friends. Now I understand why they are banned. Humans aren't dangerous in the usual way. They aren't just soldiers or fighters. They are unpredictable. They can change the outcome of a war without the most powerful weapons. They don't just fight battles, they rewrite the rules. The students nodded in agreement. The more they learned, the more they understood the depth of human ingenuity. They were not like any alien species in the galaxy. Their methods, their courage, their compassion, it all combined to make them extraordinary. As they prepared to leave the archives, the blue-eyed student paused. Do you think the instructor wanted us to see this? Was this a test? The leader smiled. Perhaps. Or maybe it was to show us that humans are not just stories or myths. They are real, and their actions speak louder than any report or lecture could. The group returned to their quarters, each student carrying a sense of awe and inspiration. They had seen the truth about humans, a species that could defy expectations, challenge the galaxy's assumptions, and teach even advanced civilizations new lessons about courage, creativity, and hope. That night, the students could not sleep. They spoke quietly in their rooms, sharing what they had learned. They debated, laughed, and marveled at the humans' ingenuity. One student finally said, "We always thought humans were primitive. Now I see they are extraordinary, and maybe we have a lot to learn from them." Another student added, "Yes, they are banned from war, but they have already fought battles in ways the galaxy will never forget. They win not because of weapons or numbers, but because of heart, mind, and courage. That is something no alien species can control." As the Academy slept under the light of distant stars, the young aliens dreamed of humans, not as enemies, not as myths, but as a species that had changed the galaxy without ever being part of it. The lesson was clear. Humans were not just fighters. They were teachers, visionaries, and heroes in ways the galaxy had yet to fully understand. The next day, the students returned to their normal routines, but their perspective had shifted. They no longer saw humans as distant or unimportant. They understood that the ban was not a punishment, but a recognition of something greater. Humans were extraordinary in ways that could not be contained, predicted, or controlled, and that realization filled the students with awe and respect. And far away, somewhere in the galaxy, humans continued their lives, exploring new worlds, solving problems, and living with the courage and ingenuity that had made them both feared and admired. The young alien students knew one thing for certain: humans had already left their mark on the galaxy, and their story was far from over. The archives remained silent, waiting for the next generation of students to uncover more secrets. But the lesson of humanity was already written in the hearts and minds of those who had seen it firsthand. Humans were not just banned from war, they were a reminder of what the galaxy could aspire to be: clever, brave, compassionate, and unstoppable in ways that defied prediction. The students left the archives, their eyes brighter, their minds sharper, and their hearts filled with a new respect. They had discovered something far more important than rules, fleets, or strategies. They had discovered the essence of what it meant to be human, and that understanding would guide them, inspire them, and perhaps, one day, change the way the galaxy saw itself. The alien students walked into the training arena, a vast dome filled with floating platforms, holographic obstacles, and simulation drones. The room glowed with energy fields, projecting different battle scenarios from across the galaxy. Today was no ordinary lesson. The instructor had planned a practical test to see if the students had truly understood what made humans extraordinary. The green leader glanced around. "This is it," he said quietly. "If we really want to understand humans, we have to apply what we've learned, not just read about it." The instructor floated down to the center of the arena, her 4 glowing eyes scanning the students. "You have learned about human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Now you will demonstrate it. You will participate in a simulation exercise designed to test your understanding. Success will require creativity, teamwork, and thinking beyond conventional rules." The students nodded, determined. They had spent hours in the archives, learning about humans' daring strategies, their ability to turn impossible situations into victories, and their unique combination of courage and intelligence. Now it was their turn to try, and they were eager to prove themselves. The holographic simulation began. The scenario projected a massive alien fleet surrounding a small human colony. The fleet outnumbered the colony's defenders by more than 10 to 1, and the students had to lead the defense. At first, the students relied on conventional tactics. They positioned their ships in lines, focused on firepower, and tried to follow the strategies used by most alien species. The results were disastrous. The holographic colony was quickly overrun, and the simulation ended in failure. The students stared at the results, shocked. "We followed the standard tactics," the blue-eyed student exclaimed. "Why didn't it work?" The instructor's voice echoed in the arena. "Humans do not follow standard tactics. Conventional methods often fail against them. And now you have discovered why. To succeed, you must think differently. You must adapt. You must be unpredictable." The students exchanged glances. They realized that simply copying alien strategies would not work. Humans succeeded not because of technology or power, but because of creativity and adaptability. They had to abandon rigid thinking and embrace flexibility. The green leader raised an idea. What if we divide our forces into small teams, each with a different task? We could create distractions, use the environment, and improvise as the simulation changes. It won't be like traditional tactics, but it might work. The instructor nodded. That is the kind of thinking humans use. Apply it. The students quickly reorganized. The orange-winged student took the lead in coordinating aerial teams, while the purple-tentacled student focused on ground defenses. The blue-eyed student monitored the alien fleet's movements, anticipating their responses. The green leader moved between the groups, ensuring communication and improvisation. The simulation restarted. The holographic alien fleet advanced, expecting a conventional defense. But the students' new plan was different. Small teams darted in unexpected directions, creating decoys and confusing the enemy. They used the terrain, floating asteroid fields, energy storms, and gravity wells to their advantage. They adapted their strategy in real time, responding to every challenge with creativity and courage. Slowly, the tide of the simulation shifted. The alien fleet, confident at first, became disoriented by the unpredictable moves of the defending teams. Key ships were drawn into traps, while other threats were neutralized by clever improvisation. The students' plan, inspired by what they had learned about humans, began to succeed where conventional tactics had failed. The students watched the holographic projection in awe. "It's working!" the purple-tentacled student shouted. "We're turning the battle around." "Yes," the green leader said, smiling. "This is what humans do. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They adapt. They take risks. And they succeed." The simulation continued, with the students constantly adjusting their strategies. They communicated, anticipated challenges, and used creativity to overcome seemingly impossible odds. By the end, the holographic colony was safe, and the alien fleet was forced to retreat. The arena's systems acknowledged the success, and the instructor's voice filled the room. "Congratulations," she said. "You have applied human principles effectively. You have demonstrated creativity, adaptability, and courage, the qualities that make humans extraordinary. You have learned why humans are banned from war, not because they are weak or disorganized, but because they are unpredictable and capable of changing outcomes in ways no one can control." The students breathed a sigh of relief, exhilarated by their success. They had not only completed the simulation, but had also experienced firsthand the power of human ingenuity. They understood now that humans did not rely on brute force or rigid tactics. They relied on imagination, adaptability, teamwork, and courage, and these qualities made them a force that could never be contained. One student, still catching her breath, asked, "Do you think humans knew this about themselves? That they could change the rules just by being clever and brave?" The instructor smiled. "Humans may not think of it that way. They simply do what is necessary to survive and protect others. That is why they are so remarkable. Their strength lies not in dominance, but in their ability to find solutions where none seem possible. That is something the galaxy has never fully controlled." The students reflected on their experience. They realized that their success in the simulation had not been due to their species' abilities alone, but because they had applied what they had learned from humans. They had embraced unpredictability, courage, and creativity. They had learned to think beyond the rules, and it had worked. The green leader addressed his group. "We've seen it ourselves. Humans are extraordinary because they are clever, adaptable, and courageous. They fight not just to win, but to protect, to survive, and to inspire hope. That is why they are banned. They cannot be predicted or controlled, and that is what makes them powerful." The blue-eyed student nodded. "And we've also learned something else. Humans teach us a lesson even without being here. They show us that thinking differently, being creative, and caring for others can be stronger than any weapon or fleet." The instructor observed the students, her expression proud. "That is correct. Humans are a reminder that strength is not only measured in power or numbers, but in ingenuity, courage, and heart. Those who underestimate them often fail to see their true potential." The students left the training arena, feeling inspired and energized. The experience had been more than a simulation. It had been a lesson in thinking, adapting, and understanding. They had seen the power of human qualities firsthand, and realized that humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were a force of inspiration, capable of challenging assumptions, defying expectations, and teaching even the most advanced civilizations new ways of thinking. As they walked through the academy's hallways, they discussed what they had learned. "We can use this in our own lives," the orange-winged student said. "Not just in simulations, but in real situations. Humans show us that creativity and courage matter more than following rules blindly," the purple-tentacled student added. "And compassion, too. Humans care about others, and that makes their actions meaningful. They don't just win battles, they save lives and inspire hope. That is something the galaxy cannot ignore," the green leader smiled. "Yes. And now we understand why humans are banned from the galactic war. They are not banned because they are weak. They are banned because they are too strong in ways we cannot control. They are a reminder that greatness comes in many forms: courage, creativity, adaptability, and compassion." Later that day, the students gathered in a quiet observation deck, looking out at the stars. They thought about humans, imagining their journeys across the galaxy, their struggles and their victories. They felt a deep respect for a species that had achieved so much without relying on overwhelming power. Humans had shown that intelligence, creativity, and heart could overcome impossible odds. The blue-eyed student whispered, "I hope one day we can meet humans. I want to see their courage and ingenuity in person." The green leader nodded. "Perhaps we will. But even if we don't, the lessons they teach are already changing us. We will carry their example forward, and maybe one day the galaxy will understand what humans truly represent." As the alien students left the observation deck, they felt a sense of purpose. They had learned more than strategies or tactics. They had learned what it meant to think like humans, to embrace unpredictability, to value creativity, and to act with courage and compassion. These lessons would stay with them, guiding their actions in ways that conventional training never could. The stars outside sparkled like distant fires, and somewhere far away, humans continued their journeys, unaware of the lessons they had taught the galaxy. But the alien students knew the truth. Humans were extraordinary. They were unpredictable, brilliant, courageous, and compassionate. They were banned from war not because of weakness, but because they were too powerful in ways that could never be measured by numbers, weapons, or rigid rules. And the students realized that the most important battles were not always fought with fleets and weapons. They were fought with intelligence, courage, imagination, and the desire to protect and inspire. The alien students walked slowly through the corridors of the academy, their minds still alive with the lessons they had learned. The simulation had ended. The archives had revealed the humans' incredible feats, and the lecture had opened their eyes. Yet a lingering question remained in their minds. What did it all truly mean? Why were humans banned from the galactic war? And what did that teach the galaxy about the essence of humanity? The green leader spoke first. "We have learned that humans are extraordinary because they are unpredictable and brave. But there is something deeper. Humans are not just clever, they inspire. Their actions, even without recognition, give hope to others. That is something the galaxy rarely sees." The purple-tentacled student nodded. "Yes, we saw it in the archives and in the simulation. Humans care about more than just winning. They think about others, protect the weak, and find solutions no one else would imagine. That is why no alien fleet could ever truly control them. That is why they are banned. They cannot be contained." The students gathered in the Academy's observatory, a giant dome overlooking a glowing nebula. Stars twinkled like scattered jewels, and far below planets orbited their suns in silence. The quiet of space seemed to emphasize the enormity of what they had discovered. Humans were not just a species. They were a force of inspiration, teaching lessons through courage, intelligence, and compassion. The blue-eyed student asked softly, "Do you think humans even know how much they have taught the galaxy? Do they understand that their actions, even far from others, change everything?" The instructor, floating silently beside them, spoke. "Humans do not seek recognition. That is what makes them extraordinary. They act because it is right, because they care, because they see possibilities where others see obstacles. The galaxy does not need them to fight wars to be transformed by their existence. Their strength is in their example." The students were silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of her words. They realized that humans' power was not measured in ships, weapons, or numbers. Humans were powerful because they inspired courage, hope, and change. Even without participating in the galactic war, humans had influenced the galaxy more than many species could imagine. The green leader finally said, "It is like humans are teaching the galaxy how to think, how to act, and how to be brave even without being here." Their absence in war is not weakness. It is a choice the galaxy must respect, because their influence is far greater than any fleet could achieve. The instructor nodded. Precisely. Humans are a reminder that greatness is not always loud, obvious, or measurable. It can be quiet, subtle, and still change the universe. And that is the greatest lesson of all. The students turned to look out at the stars. They imagined humans traveling across the galaxy, exploring new worlds, solving problems, and helping others in ways that did not make headlines but shaped entire civilizations. They thought about the courage it took to face overwhelming odds, the creativity required to find solutions no one else could imagine, and the compassion that guided humans' choices even in danger. The orange-winged student spoke, wings fluttering softly. Humans teach us that rules are not always the answer. They show that thinking differently can succeed when the strongest weapons fail. That is a lesson even we, advanced as we are, need to learn. The purple-tentacled student added, and they teach that courage is not just fighting. It is protecting others, solving problems, and never giving up even when the odds are impossible. That is why they are banned. Their power cannot be contained, predicted, or controlled, and maybe it should not be. The students spent hours discussing what they had learned. They debated the implications of humans' actions, the lessons from the archives, and the principles behind the simulation. Every conversation returned to the same conclusion. Humans were extraordinary, not because of physical strength or advanced technology, but because of qualities that no alien species could replicate perfectly, the instructor observed quietly. Finally, she spoke. You have learned well. Humans are banned from the galactic war because they cannot be controlled. But their true influence is greater than any battle. They teach the galaxy what courage, creativity, and compassion can achieve. You, as the next generation of leaders, must carry these lessons forward. Humans are an example, not a threat. Their existence inspires hope, and hope is more powerful than any weapon. The students reflected on this deeply. They realized that humans' absence from war was not a punishment, nor a sign of weakness. It was a recognition of their extraordinary abilities. Humans did not need to fight to influence the galaxy. They had already changed it through their actions, principles, and character. The green leader finally said, I understand now. Humans are banned not to protect others from them, but to protect the galaxy from misunderstanding their power. If humans were forced into war, their ingenuity would disrupt everything, and many would not be ready for it. Their true influence lies in inspiring others to think, act, and hope. The students left the observatory with a new sense of purpose. They were determined to carry the lessons they had learned into their own lives. They would approach challenges with creativity, act with courage, and consider the well-being of others. They had seen what humans could teach the galaxy, and they would honor that example. Over the next days, the students shared what they had learned with others in the academy. They told stories from the archives, explained the outcomes of the simulation, and described the courage and ingenuity of humans. Other students listened in awe, realizing that humans were far more than a distant species. They were teachers, heroes, and examples of what the galaxy could achieve. Even alien instructors began to notice a change in the students. They acted with more creativity, took risks in problem-solving, and approached challenges with courage and compassion. The influence of humans had spread through the academy, not through orders or lectures, but through inspiration. The purple-tentacled student, now confident in their understanding, said to the group, We have learned that strength is not just about power. It is about courage, imagination, and protecting others. Humans remind us that even the smallest, simplest actions, when done with heart and intelligence, can change the universe. The green leader smiled. Exactly. That is the ultimate lesson. Humans are extraordinary because they embody qualities that no one can replicate perfectly. They inspire, they teach, and they show the galaxy what is possible. One evening, the students gathered once more at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. A distant planet shone in the nebula, a reminder that life continued across the galaxy. The students spoke softly, reflecting on the lessons they had learned and imagining the humans traveling far away, facing challenges and inspiring hope in countless worlds. The blue-eyed student finally said, I hope humans never forget who they are. Their courage, intelligence, and compassion are the greatest gifts they can give the galaxy, even without fighting. The instructor, watching silently, added, And you must never forget Humans teach us that the greatest power lies not in domination or control, but in thinking, caring, and inspiring. That lesson is more important than any battle. It is what will shape the future of the galaxy. As the students left the academy that night, their hearts were full. They had learned that humans were not just a species. They were a standard of excellence, a reminder that bravery, creativity, and compassion could overcome even the most impossible odds. The galaxy itself, they realized, had already been changed by humans, even in their absence from war. The young aliens understood that humans' influence was not measured in victories or losses, but in the ideas and inspiration they left behind. That was the real reason they were banned, because their presence alone could not be contained, predicted, or controlled. Humans were teachers, leaders, and examples of hope, and the galaxy was better for it. As the stars twinkled above, the students felt a quiet awe. They had glimpsed the power of humanity, not through weapons or armies, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. Humans had shown them what the galaxy could become, a place where creativity, compassion, and bravery mattered more than any rules, numbers, or rigid structures in somewhere far away. Humans continued their lives, exploring, helping, and inspiring. They remained unaware of the young alien students who had discovered their secrets, yet their influence spread silently, shaping minds, hearts, and the future of the galaxy. The green leader looked at the horizon, voice soft but certain. Humans are banned from war, yes, but they have already won in ways the galaxy does not measure. They teach, they inspire, and they remind us that courage, creativity, and heart are stronger than any weapon. That is their true power. The students nodded in agreement, knowing that they would carry this lesson forever, and as they turned to leave the observatory, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if recognizing the quiet triumph of a species that had changed the galaxy without ever needing to fight. Humans were gone from the battlefield, but their legacy remained, endless, powerful, and eternal. The galaxy had learned through the eyes of curious alien students what it truly meant to be human. And in that knowledge, hope, courage, and inspiration would always endure.